Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Becoming You with me, your host, Marjani Aladdin, where we will discuss all things personal development, becoming your best self, and connecting to your personal power and purpose. How are you guys doing today? Thank you so much for joining me. This week, we have been discussing 3 amazing topics, what I call the 3 Ps of personal power. Connecting to your personal power and confidence, your purpose, and your passion. All the things that are necessary for you to take hold of that confidence and ability within you to achieve your goals. Last week, we talked about how discipline really affects all of the areas of our life as we are supposed to become, or we're trying to become more successful, trying to become the best version of ourselves. And so now we're talking about how the principle of personal power really takes place, has a really strong place in our success process. So before we go too far into today's topic, which is how to connect to your personal power and your personal intuition, and how important that is, I want to just touch on what we spoke on yesterday in case this is your first time joining us. So as I said before, we're talking all about personal power and how influential it is to your success. And so the definition of personal power we went over yesterday, I'm just going to repeat it to you guys. Personal power is the ability that you possess to improve, change, and evolve oneself. This is the power you have to master and control the things that go on in your life. Your ability to control your emotions and your actions to live in a space of intent. So, personal power allows you to influence the trajectory of your personal development and therefore your life as a whole. And we talked about how the foundational element, the principle of being connected to that personal power is the belief that you can do something, and how important it is to affirm yourself, connect to the ability to change things in your own life, and acknowledge that you are powerful. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, please feel free to check on yesterday's episode, which is episode 4. It is still on Facebook. If you guys want to watch the replay, it is always available to you guys. It was a really great episode yesterday. We really delved into some really great topics on how you can take ownership and really utilize your power to become your best self. So today, I want to talk about not just the principles and the foundations of personal development and what it means to connect to your personal power, but how to actually make that connection, how to follow your intuition and connect to your purpose. This is so important because we spoke about this yesterday. There are so many people that go throughout their lives asleep, in a sense. They don't know themselves. They haven't analyzed what they love and what they don't. They feel disconnected and they've been living on autopilot. And that can happen for 5 years of your life. That can happen for 8 years of your life, or that can happen for 40 years of your life. But the way to start to dismantle that autopilot mindset is to increase your sense of awareness and get to know yourself. So I want to talk about how often our personal power is connected to pressure and comparison in our lives, especially as millennials in our social media era. It is very easy to see what other people have going on around you, and then couple that with your own expectations for your life. It can become overwhelming. So there is a constant pressure, whether you work in the corporate arena, whether you're in college, whether you're an entrepreneur or creative, to compete and keep up with those around us. We are constantly told to be mindful that there's always going to be somebody working harder, someone smarter, someone further along with you. And because we live in such a competitive society, it tends to be a reflection of how we feel that our self-worth is measured. Although those are 2 very separate topics. Your value that is considered by others in society's terms versus your value and worth as a person are not necessarily connected to one another. You are still a worthy, capable person that is powerful. That does not mean that the space that you're in and the way that society is viewing you in that moment or what other people are doing affects that level of worth. You are still worthy. You are still powerful. You still have purpose. Okay, so that's really one of the biggest things to remember. And we're going to deep dive into how comparison really affects our ability to be successful a little bit later. But the pressure to be on par with those who are succeeding around us can become a stifling feeling. It disconnects us and gets us off track from our personal goals, our personal journey. We talked about this last week. Our journey is going to look different depending on who we are. It is necessary for you to go through your specific journey, and it's going to look different from other people because you're being molded in a customized way. And that's spectacular. It may seem rough. It may seem intimidating because the road less traveled is always intimidating. It's always a little bit scary, but it's also exciting because this is a custom experience. If your process is doing what everybody has always done in order for you to be successful, then there is no spark or anything special about who you become in the process. But because the process is so customized, it's so important for you to go through certain things, certain experiences for you to become the best version of yourself. That's what makes it spectacular, because no one can duplicate or replicate that experience and get the same results. It's customized to you. So, when we compare ourselves, when we get inundated with the feelings of this is what someone else is doing, this is how it's supposed to be, this is who I'm supposed to be because this is who everyone else is, we become stifled, and we become stuck. So we talked about helplessness yesterday, how we feel like we don't have the power to control things, but sometimes we have a desire to change things in our own life, but because we see other people around us doing different things or seemingly being more successful from what we view, it becomes a feeling of being caged or stifled or stuck. And this can also lead to depression and anxiety and procrastination and keeping you further away from your dreams. So sometimes one of the biggest things that you have to do is disconnect from all of the influences that are around you in order to connect to your personal power. All right, so becoming stuck is a very irritating process. I say irritating because I really understand this feeling, especially when you are a results-oriented person like myself. You can feel very frustrated when you don't seem like you're moving forward at the pace that you want to move forward. But as I say, I think in every episode now, small steps towards the bigger goal is still progress. Progression is progress. You don't have to take big jumps every day for you to be making strides towards your goal. Just keep moving. So reconnecting to your personal power and intuition is key to creating an authentic life. Okay, so being stuck is a recipe for comparison, doubt, and plain old giving up. So that's why it's so important that giving up part is what will hold you back. All the other things, you might be able to rework them through awareness, but sometimes when you quit and with a sense of or a lack of awareness, you may never return to that process and to that goal. So remember to, in all things, don't quit. Return to awareness. Sometimes you have to put the influence of other people and other things on mute around you. And this is so important because it gives you the ability and the clarity to analyze what is right for you. Analyze the life that you truly want to live and what makes you feel purposeful, passionate, and makes you feel fulfilled, and also has a supreme benefit on the lives of other people. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the 6 questions that you can ask yourself to reveal your purpose, and we'll deep dive into what that looks like so that you can analyze that. But it's so important to know that you are going to stifle at some point your creative process because we are always inundated with influence, no matter what. Even our perception of what art is and what beauty is and what productivity is and what success is a specific reflection on the experiences that we've had and the people that have influenced and surrounded us. So understand that the good and the bad has been influenced by people, right? And just because it was good for them or it was a singular act that could be both good and bad doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. So sometimes we have to disconnect and unravel some of those mindsets and those philosophies and thoughts that we had to find out if they're true and right for us, if they reflect our best selves and the person that we're becoming. So the creative process and your ability to produce can be saturated with the influence of others. Often this influence at its source is the most sincere form of flattery, right? We've heard people say this 1,000 times that copying someone or imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And truly it is. You see someone you look up to, you see what they're doing, you want to be like them. And so it is literally naturally a part of human nature to try to emulate them, right? Monkey see, monkey do. That's literally how we learn as humans. We see our parents make a sandwich, and then we know how to make a sandwich. And that's all we really know is what we've seen. But it's so important to know that there is power in the specificity of your creative ideas. And sometimes that is so far off from the things that other people think of or experience or even in their realm of thought. And I talked about Elon Musk yesterday, about him going to Mars. Think about all the people that looked at him like he was crazy, right? That were like, Mars, dude, what? Okay, I mean, yeah, you can make a car, you can fund NASA, but you're not going to Mars. You are not physically going to Mars. But he has a mindset that he doesn't believe that. He's able to disconnect from the influence and the perceptions of others of what is and isn't possible for him, because he is connected to his personal power. He is aware and believes in his ability to commit to the goal that is a reflection of his higher purpose in life, right? And we all have the same ability to reach our own personal Mars, whatever that spectacular thing is that other people think that you can't do. Know that you can do it when you connect to this personal power, but that requires a disconnect. So don't let your inspiration turn into imitation. In our desire to be like those who are succeeding, who are paving the way for us to become our best selves, also know that there is still power in being, like I said, your individual self. That very inspiration can drown out the voice of our own unique creative genius and our personal intuition about what is or is not right for us. The power is to create the life that you want, and the experience of true authentic happiness exists within the ability to genuinely connect to yourself. And as we said, learning yourself and connecting to your personal self requires an unraveling of all the things that society has placed into you, both good and bad. You have to understand them, take all the pieces that society has given you, figure out which ones make your puzzle, and push everything to the side. Some of it you'll keep, some of it you won't, but it requires awareness and analysis and the ability to know that you can. Connecting or reconnecting to this power can seem daunting. So we're going to talk today about 4 ways to connect to this personal power and detach from comparison and increase your ability to hear your personal intuition. We will hear that when we come back. Hi guys, good morning. Thank you so much to everyone who is joining me online. Hello, David's team. How are you guys doing today? Thank you so much for joining. Oh, I turned this around. There we go. Hi guys, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's hump day. We're connecting to our purpose and our passion, that's for sure. Good morning. Hello. Thank you so much for joining. All right, guys. Welcome back to Becoming You with Marjani Aladdin, me, and this week we are talking about connecting to your personal power and intuition. So before we left, we talked about the importance of knowing how important and how powerful your specific viewpoint on the world is, and how not to let other people influence that so much that you lose your authentic self. To remind yourself to start to unravel the influence of society, of family, of friends, of what we see on social media, to connect to your personal power and purpose. And this is so important because we all have something great to give back to the world, but we can't do that until we find our best selves. So we're talking about the 4 ways to connect to your personal power so that you can have autonomy over the trajectory of your life. So number 1 is disconnect. Sometimes it can seem impossible to hear or even find our inner voice or power in the midst of the sounds of outside influences and opinions. A lot of times, a great example of this is like when you're going to college, and maybe you had a major or you went to go to college that your parents didn't necessarily agree with. For whatever reasons, right? I think this is one of the key spaces in a millennial's life or in a young adult's life that they find that they're in making adult decisions or have the capacity to make adult decisions that don't necessarily reflect the opinions of their parents or people that care for them. And so they come to a place, a fork in the road, where they have to start to decide who they are and what's best for them, or what path they're allowed to choose what's best for them, right? And so sometimes the decision that you make for yourself is right? It's the best decision for your future, which is great. Sometimes you go with the decision that other people have made for you. And sometimes you feel like it's right. Sometimes you feel like you regret that. The truth is, it doesn't matter what decision you make. When you do make the decision, you have to know that it's your choice. Your choice to have faith in someone else's decision, your choice to have faith and take responsibility for your own choices that you make. But you can't do that until you take time to separate from the opinions of others and start to realize that the choices that you make in the end are going to affect you and your life. You can't make decisions based on how other people are going to feel, because at the end of the day, it's not their life. And so the same thing is true for your personal development, for your goals that you set for yourself, for your career choices. You have to make goals that reflect your higher purpose and what fulfills you. And you can only do that through disconnection. So learning to create space and separation between those factors and yourself, between the things that influence you, is the first step to clearing out the noise that may be blocking your visions and your passions. These are things like getting into a career that doesn't serve you, getting into relationships in or out of relationships that don't serve you, being surrounded by people that only are beneficial to you because of how other people view you within that circle. Feel the ability and the power and the strength in those relationships, if there are things that are supposed to stay in your life, to separate from them and start to unravel who you truly are. Whether that means taking a break from social media, because social media has a lot of pressure that it puts on us from a psychological point of view. Our conscious and unconscious brain is very aware of the pressures that comes with social media being so prevalent in our life. It's so tied into how we interact with people. And so it's very easy to see previews, right? The best portions of people's lives online, and causes us to compare our personal journey. So allow yourself to disconnect from those influences, both good and bad. Whether that means taking that social media hiatus or distancing yourself from people who wish to control your journey and your life. There's a difference between people giving you advice because they want the best for you and giving you the power to make those decisions and loving you from that space. And then there's a difference between people who only feel like you're allowed to be in their life because they can control certain parts of it. And it only is allowed to be within their scope of what is and isn't correct. So learn to see that difference, because just because you disconnect from people doesn't mean that you can't take people's advice. It just means giving yourself the ability to take it with a grain of salt and then make your own decisions outside of that influence. It's important to step back and create space for your inner self to step up and speak loudly and give yourself the opportunity to hear its unique perspective. So very often, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, you'll hear your mom or your dad's voice come out of your mouth. You'll say something and you'll be like, oh, is my mom in the room? Because I think I just turned into her. Essentially, it's literally what you've learned. You've learned these canned responses to life from the influences around you. And sometimes it's funny little phrases and statements that you say, but sometimes it's how you respond and the way that you make decisions. You are literally living out someone else's mindset because you have not given yourself the time to disconnect from that, evaluate what does and doesn't work for your process and for your best life. So I really want you guys to take a look at how you disconnect from the influence of people around you. And that's not to say, once again, that these people aren't great people in your life, that you shouldn't consider their opinions and that they're not the right advice, but you have to make sure that these are decisions that are right for you. And I saw someone put in the comment time that you take those choices more seriously when you've made decisions that reflect your your vantage point, your viewpoint, what you really want in life. And that's so true. It's so true, because when we give power to someone else, we also start to feel lost. And here's the thing, when we make decisions based on someone else's opinions, we can begin to resent them when we don't get the results that we want, right? We've taken away the responsibility for ourselves, and so therefore we feel like we get to be mad at someone when we didn't get the results that we wanted, even though that's not the choice that we necessarily made. We gave them the power to make choices in our life instead of connecting to the only person who actually has the power, which is yourself. So we talked about this yesterday. You have to understand and believe you have the ability and the power to make choices, and you have the intuition within you. Like I said, whether you believe that spiritual energy, a reflection of God in you, or whatever your religion is, you have to trust that at some point there is a power in that. There is something purposeful about the things that are inside of you. If you don't believe that, it will be very easy to give people power over your life and also be mad at them when they made decisions that aren't best for you. It's not their life. They're going to make decisions based on what they think is best, what they've experienced, or it could be advice that isn't even good advice. Good advice in the best case scenario is a reflection of love and them desiring the best possible outcome for you based on their personal experiences and based on their personal desires and perception of what is good and what isn't good. So let me put it to you this way. You give someone the autonomy to make decisions over your life, but you don't know that you two have two very different perspectives on what it means to be successful, what it means to be fulfilled, what it means to be purposeful. That means when you give that person that power, they're making choices that do not reflect your long-term goals of who you're becoming, why you want to get there, or who you genuinely are in that moment. Think about that for a moment. You're allowing people to write a path for you that you don't even want. Like, not even a little bit. This is not even like, oh, I don't know what I want. Maybe I need direction. You're finding that this path is not something that connects to what you think is your purpose. And when we talk about purpose, a lot of times people become intimidated by that word, because people do use examples like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and huge people that make billions of dollars. And so when we talk about purpose, it tends to be thought of as these really grand ideas. But when I talk about purpose, we each individually have purpose. We have something about us that is powerful, that is needed in this world. Some of us are healers, right? We heal others through our words, through our careers. A lot of people, for example, almost every nurse that I know is a healer. She's not a healer because she's a nurse. She's a nurse because she's a healer. And she knows that she's a nurse because she's a healer, because she's connected to her purpose and then found a passion that reflects that so she can better affect people's lives. Sometimes that seems like a very cut and dry answer, but it's true for all of the areas of our life, whatever you're good at. Maybe you're good at community building. You are the connector of people and be able to start conversations and impact people's lives in a way that's powerful and bring people together. Maybe that's your skill, and whatever extracurricular or hustle you have, or your full-time passion, you can insert that purpose into your passion in the everyday life. Okay, but you're not going to know what that purpose is until you take time to learn yourself, you believe in yourself, and you start to make small steps towards your goal that is separate from the perceptions and the ideas of others. You've got that. You've got that power and the ability to do that. So disconnect. That's one of the foundational elements of not letting your inspiration turn into imitation. It will alleviate your helplessness. It will alleviate your feelings of self-doubt and questions of self-worth. Okay, so before we go into the second part of, or the second pillar of how to connect to your personal power and intuition, I want to take a moment to pause and talk about comparison, because the disconnecting part comes in twofold, right? You lack the ability to have a clear perception or connection to your personal voice, which could be in a creative aspect, but can also turn into feeding off of your insecurities and viewing people in a way that you feel entitled to their success without actually knowing their story, which does two things to you. When you feel entitled to people's success, you minimize the work that they have done, and you're cheating yourself out of true perspective of understanding the process of what's necessary for you to be successful. So what you're doing is you're, number one, taking away from the fact that although you might see a picture, just like a photo shoot, you go, you see a picture, they took 400 pictures, it took 4 hours, and you see one picture. You didn't see all the ones where the model's face looked crazy, where it was blurry, where the photographer dropped the camera or fell over. You didn't see when a car drove in the back and a random cat walked in the scene. You didn't see any of that. You see the one perfect picture that goes in the magazine. And to think, and then what a lot of people do is they view this and they're like, oh, I could model. Oh, I could be a producer. Oh, I could be a world-class photographer. No big deal. I mean, obviously, look at that. It's just a picture. I'm just seeing the snapshot of success and not everything that goes behind it. And when you acknowledge that everything, pretty much everything, takes hard work, especially things that require, that have foundational longevity, you'll realize that all of it requires a respect of the work that went behind it. And it will really help you not feel that sense of comparing other people's journeys to your own, but allows you to understand that your time is coming because you're putting the work in. So when you actually have that sense of perspective, you gift yourself patience and the ability to know that no matter what, your time is coming because you respect that success takes hard work. It takes a process, a customized process. It takes self-analysis and awareness. Somebody said this, yes, it's hard because it requires you to do major self-reflection. You've reflected so much on who you are that you've become clear, and you don't need to compare your journey to others. And that's not to say it doesn't happen. It will always happen. I had a moment yesterday where I felt a twinge and I had to check myself, but it's all about awareness and going back to knowing yourself, knowing your journey, and knowing that everybody's process is completely different from what you even know. Even if you know the whole story, you don't know the whole story. That's just life. That's just the process. So when we come back, because we're gonna wrap this up, we're gonna dive a little bit more into comparison and what it means and how it affects your life, and we'll finish up with the 3 different ways to connect to your personal power. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining. No, it's okay. Good morning. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you're so right about the self-awareness and analysis part, because if you don't know yourself, it's difficult to get connected to your goals. It really is. I just
all right, feedback purposes. That's how many people watch during your segments.
Oh, that's awesome.
Stars are people that have watched before.
Okay.
People that are not starred or people that are brand new.
Okay. It's tomorrow's, right?
It's good data.
Hello, good morning. Stacy, I feel like I've seen that name before too. Matt, Kathy, Tracy. You guys are repeaters. I love it. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, and I'm so glad that the messages are resonating with you guys, and you're getting up early and getting your purpose-driven content for the day, and I love it. Zachary, Connie, love it. Thank you for joining us. Tracy, welcome back. Thank you. Breakbank, Brad, Craig, Linda, and Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate you being a part of this broadcast. What's for the second part of this? I'm missing a sheet. Yeah, guys, when we come back, we're going to talk about comparison, how it really affects us. There it is. And what those 3 pillars are, because comparison is one of those really hard things to deal with. We all deal with it. If you say you don't compare yourself to other people, you're lying. You're lying. I don't believe you, because we all do it. I don't care how secure you are. We're going to talk about this when we come back. I'm going to bring this up because, yes, we all have the issue. Hi, Leroy. Good morning. Thanks for joining. Look at you, early bird. Love it. Yeah. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Becoming You with me, your host, Marjani Aladdin. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 5. This is episode 5. So exciting. So we are talking about how to connect to your personal power and your intuition and how comparison affects our ability to be successful. So before we left, we talked about how important it is to disconnect from the influence of others when we are trying to connect to our personal power and our inner voice. And what that means is not necessarily not taking advice from others, but understanding that their perception of what is or isn't correct for their lives is not necessarily a reflection of what is or isn't good for yours. So just taking that time to analyze that and disconnect from those influences is very important for creating your own powerful inner strong voice. So comparison is something that happens when we look from left to right to seek validation on where we should be in life. Comparison is to estimate, measure, or note the similarity or dissimilarity between two things. So we are bombarded constantly with images and snapshots of what a well-lived life looks like, and often there will be times when our own personal process doesn't reflect what we see other people are living. And the truth is, comparison is the thief of joy and the enemy of authentic living. As we seek to find validation or direction from left to right, we sometimes steal our own authenticity because we are looking at other people's success to validate what we are or are not doing. And sometimes that can affect what we should be doing. So why do we compare? There are a couple of reasons why we compare ourselves. We are lacking something that we feel like we need in our lives. It is fueled off of an insecurity or a feeling of a lack of self-worth. It could be external pressures and expectations from family or friends or significant others, or even the expectations that we put on ourselves. It could be a desire to be someone different or be in a different place, and fear or obligation. So this goes back to the perception of others, that people will not feel that we are worthy or that we are important or we are worth the love that we are getting from others if we don't check off certain boxes. And this last part is something that I can personally relate to, that I've had issues with, is that if I'm not perfect, if I haven't done certain things, then I'm no longer worthy of the love of my family or my friends, or I'm no longer good enough. And so therefore I always operated under this perception of perfectionism. And what it essentially did was stall my growth. And it didn't matter. My family and my friends still loved me. They still thought the same way of me. But I was creating this mindset and belief in my own head that really didn't reflect reality. So sometimes we create expectations off of things that don't really exist. And this is where comparison gets really dangerous. So remember to not look too far to the left or the right as we are looking for our own paths and our own journey. Trust that you have a power within you that is needed and necessary. So the second part of connecting to your personal power and your intuition is reconnect. So I know that I said the first step was disconnecting from others and from their influence. The second part is reconnecting. And this is not reconnecting to people. Becoming you is about finding and amplifying your best qualities so that you can become your best self. So when I say becoming you as you are, as society has created you, is not the reflection of who you truly are. That is not the core example of who you are. It is you layered with expectations, with canned responses, with mindsets that are both limiting and help you. It's insecurities, it's strengths, it's all of these things that experience has created in you. But as you peel back some of those things and you increase your level of self-awareness and strengthen your sense of belief in your personal power, you will reconnect to that person. You will peel back those layers that exist and find out who you truly are. In order to do this, one must create a clear understanding of who they are so that they can build off of that foundation when creating their best life. Finding your voice and crafting a unique vision for your life requires some clarity of self. And we talked about this last week, self-awareness. self-awareness, self-awareness. Talk to a therapist. Speak to a friend that you feel like you can speak to openly and honestly. Journal. Learn yourself. Whatever is necessary for you to educate and learn yourself in a way that increases your self-awareness is going to increase your personal power and give you the ability to affect your life positively and intentionally. And that's so important. That intent and positivity is really going to propel you forward towards your dreams and your goals. Finding your voice and crafting that unique vision, as I said, it requires some clarity of self. So once you have distanced yourself from the outside opinions and influences of others, now it's time to connect to your own voice, your own passions, and your talents. For myself, the way that I retreat into myself and learn myself is journaling. Like I said, it connects, it requires connecting to myself daily in a very personal and intentional way. And the key way to do this, if you're struggling with your journaling practice, if you've never done it, if you don't feel like you're a writer, is to ask yourself questions. How did I feel today? Why did I do this? How does this support my goals? How did it make me feel? Those are simple questions that you can ask yourself to begin your journaling process, to unravel and increase awareness about your day and your experiences. Taking the time to listen to what feels right for you and your journey is so important for exploring yourself, right? This is the journey of deep self-exploration and reconnecting to who you really are. So first, we're going to disconnect from the things that are influencing who we are becoming or who we have become. And then we are reconnecting to ourselves so that we can start to identify who that person really is and what it is that you're seeking to change or keep in your life, things that actually benefit who you're becoming. So the third way to connect to your personal power is to remove judgment. We talk about this a lot when we talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is the act of being present without judgment. So you're taking away the judgment and the opinions of the act in the moment so that you can just experience it. Not living in the past or the future, but just the present is very powerful. Many of us fall victim to our own expectations, and I spoke about this when I touched on comparison. We have expectations of what our life is supposed to look like at this point of our life or in general. And the truth is, no matter what the planning, and I'm the queen of planning, I love a good plan, but no matter how much you plan, life is going to hit you with the unexpected. That's the truth, because you can't, if you could plan and nothing else happened, that's not planning, that's telling the future, right? We would be psychics up in here and nothing would ever be an issue. I wish I could make a plan and everything always went according to it and worked perfectly, but that's not the reality of life. So things are always going to unexpectedly come up. Now you can create a plan that kind of helps you circumvent those when they happen. You can be proactive. You can set up as many fail-safes as possible, but also understand that there is no perfection in life. So open yourself up to the idea that you might have bumps in the road, that your process is not going to be perfect and things are going to change over time. That's okay. And when we acknowledge that, it reduces our need to look to the left and the right and compare ourselves. It allows us to stay in the moment and the process of becoming and working on ourselves and getting towards our goals. Because yes, Gabby, something is always going to come up, but that's okay if something comes up. Don't let that discourage you and feel like the only way for you to be successful is to emulate and copy or let other people take autonomy over the direction of your life. You're still powerful and you still have a purpose. And I say that repeatedly because a lot of people don't think that they have a purpose. You do. You have the power to affect change in other people's life in a positive way. Whether that's by the products that you create that helps them feel more affirmed in who they are and connected to their best self, whether that's the job that you do on a daily basis and just being able to be the nice face or the communicator of bad news or good news or experience. We all have, as I said, you might be a healer, you might be a communicator, you might be a builder. Maybe you work in like engineering and you're like, okay, but what's my purpose? I work with code all day. You're building something that is going to affect and influence other people's lives. Purpose is the ability to see past what you're doing and seeing how it really affects people's life in a grand scale. My favorite inventor is the inventor of the aglet, which is the little piece that goes at the end of a shoestring. I found out about this when I was in like 3rd grade, and I've been obsessed ever since. And I think that this guy, whose name I don't know, and they did like a Phineas and Ferb episode that touched on this, guys, but I've been obsessed with it way before Phineas and Ferb. Basically, in Greek mythology, or in Greece, they used to dip rope into candle wax in order for it to not fray when they did their sandals. And then at some point, someone actually invented a little plastic piece that goes at the end of our shoelaces. Now, when I think of purpose, I think of how something can affect someone and not necessarily be connected to popularity. Because in our society, we tend to think purpose, popularity, and being famous, right? Or being super rich. So the inventor, I just got a note, the inventor of the aglet, because I'm not going to pretend I knew, because I did not, but his name is Harvey Kennedy. So thank you, David. Harvey Kennedy, I will remember that forever now. But this guy is dope, because how many shoelaces have you had in your life, right? More than you can think of, at least if you're not a sneakerhead like me. Up until you were in like middle school or high school, you wore sneakers. And I can distinctly remember how frustrating it is when that little aglet came off of my shoelace and it frayed and I could not get it through the shoe. And I just thought about how powerful it is that I don't know this guy's name. I mean, maybe he's rich. I'm sure he, figured something out how to make money. Maybe he didn't, but he invented something that affects everybody's life in a way that is so monumental, but also so quiet. And that's the power of purpose. What you do might not affect people till after you're gone. What you do might not make you rich. What you do might not make you famous. But living your purpose is the ability to affect long-term change and affect other people's life in a powerful way. Sometimes it goes far beyond your reach. So now y'all are walking around with little shoelaces, and this guy didn't get rich off of it. He didn't get rich off of creating the aglet, but he still was purposeful in a way that affected your life in a way that you don't even know. You didn't even think about it, right? But it's affected generations of people, and it will continue to affect generations of people. It's so much that it was able to create new shoe brands. And now you have sneakerheads, and you have those shoelaces that curl up and do all this other crazy stuff. But it all happened because this guy created something that really affects our lives in a bigger, more purposeful way. And I want you guys to think about your gifts in the same way. Know that you have the power to create something that you might think is super small. You think like, oh, that's not a big deal. It's a piece of wax on the end of a shoelace, like no big deal. But you just transformed how people wear shoes. You just affected generations upon generations of people, because guess what? We're still using the aglet, and we're going to continue to use it. Sneakers aren't going anywhere. Shoelaces aren't going anywhere, and no one wants frayed sneakers. So think about how you're going to affect change through your ability to connect to your purpose. He was a builder, and through that building, he affected industry. How are you going to affect change through who you are innately being or who you are becoming on a day-to-day basis? So we have one more spot or one more way to connect to your personal power, and we're going to discuss that when we come back. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Good morning. This is ridiculous. Y'all, fun fact for my live viewers. He invented the aglet in 1790, so obviously he's not alive anymore. And he was paid $3.50 for his idea by a small shoe company. Now, I don't know what that amounts to in American dollars now, but he did not get rich off of the aglet. But that does not mean he was not purposeful. So do not think that your purpose is necessarily tied to your financial result. That's a really big part of it.
He was a custodian at the shoe company.
He was a custodian.
He was cleaning up shoe pieces.
We need to know who the Kennedy family is, and if they ever figured out how to make some money off of that. Probably not. Poor things. But purpose. He was still able to be purposeful, and that's the powerful thing about it. All right, guys, welcome back to our final segment of Becoming You with Marjani Aladdin on BFAM 109.6. I'm sorry I haven't said that the whole episode. Make sure you're following BFAM on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on Radionomy. If you're not able to tune into our live casts, we're definitely able to have you join us on the replay. Listen just audio on Radionomy. We'd love to have you along. If you have any questions for this last segment, make sure that you drop them in the description box or call into the BFAM line at 678-383-4378. All right, guys, let's get into it. Let's wrap this thing up because I know you guys are pumped. You're ready to take on your day. You have connected to your personal power, and you guys are ready to take on the day. So I'm not going to keep you too much longer. Before we get into it, I want to say a really big thank you to our giveaway sponsor. We are wrapping up the giveaway on Friday the 15th. The Local Market, make sure you're following them on Instagram. The Local Market ATL is a plant-based pop-up and online marketplace that supports local entrepreneurs and promotes a more sustainable future. They will be partnering with me to do a giveaway that will contain a couple of natural products like delicious coffee that I drink every day. I would definitely recommend you enter into this giveaway. Make sure you're following me, make sure you're following Local Market ATL, and click the link in their bio in order to join in or to enter the giveaway. It's a really great prize pack, and I'm telling you, the coffee is the bomb. So the winner will be chosen on the 15th, so get your entries in now. All right, last but not least, we have talked about this a little bit. I touched on it, but we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper. In order to really connect to your personal power, you're going to have to stop comparing yourself to other people. I did a webinar with April Weathers, who has a communications company. I will put the link underneath this after, on Facebook after this cast. But we did a live stream a couple of months ago, or a year ago, and we talked about comparison and how it affects you as an entrepreneur, specifically, because we're both entrepreneurs. But I think it's so important that people understand that these principles are universal. The idea and concepts of personal development, especially in the entrepreneurial space, mirror one another. And I did a live workshop with Danny Sanchez about a year ago on this as well. And what we talked about was that there is a duality, a process that is streamlined on top of each other, that goes with the personal development of self and the personal development the development of your career and entrepreneurial self. And I say that because if you're going into the corporate space, there are still some developmental concepts that are necessary for your success that are true for entrepreneurship, like discipline and communication and leadership, things of that nature. So, comparison is the ultimate distraction on the road to fulfilling your purpose in life. It's a distraction. That's one of the reasons why I hate comparison, because it distracts your path and it puts you on somebody else's. And it might not be the right path for you. So you're slowing down your process of getting to your goal. I put it this way. You're walking down the street, you get to a fork in the road, you don't know which way to go, left or right. You see somebody who immediately takes a right. And without considering it, you're like, well, they seem pretty confident. They seem like they've probably gone down this road before. I must go down this road. Makes sense. They're already further along than I am. They're going to get to the end before I am. Obviously, look at the shoes they're wearing on this path. Obviously, this is the way that I should go. But the truth is, that path might get them closer to their goal, but your goal might be the long way around, right? Or there could have been a shortcut that benefited you more if you had taken the time to analyze the options. So when we compare, we distract ourselves from our personal path and our ability to see with clarity what is and is not for us, because we're so focused on what looks good for them that we just adopt the idea that that's what's best for us. And that's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily untrue. But it's a circumstantial situation. You have to be able to look within yourself and figure out what's best. So comparison desires to almost take away your confidence, because it tells you that you and your path and your process is not good enough, and that you have to be like someone else in order to be worthy. And that's not a fact of life. Let go of the desires to emulate and duplicate someone else's life and success. Seek your own version of success. Don't seek to be the next Oprah. Don't seek to be the next Obama. Be inspired by their success, but don't emulate them to the point that you are no longer your own self. That strips your power away. Because the truth is, when you are your full self, you're inspiring someone else to be their full self, because your purpose unlocks the key to someone else's purpose. It's super true. It really is. I just met someone who influenced my career 10 years ago that I never even met the other day at a random housewarming party. So that just talks about how influential purpose is, because sometimes you can be living your purpose and just doing your thing, and you affect people in a ripple way that now you have affected and changed someone's life and the trajectory of their life, and you don't know who they can become. Who is the person that inspired Oprah? Who is the person that was the catalyst for Obama and Michelle and Barack Obama? Who is the person that sparked the scientific creativity of Elon Musk, as I've said before? Who are those people? Those aren't the people whose names we know. Those aren't the famous people or the rich people, but without them, without their purpose, without their ability to be their best selves, their most authentic selves, we would not have the people that we consider the example of success, of being your best self, of purpose. There are levels to it, and it does not all come with success and with riches and popularity. It comes with intent and understanding what your purpose is and what your power is. Just because you didn't teach at Alvin Ailey doesn't mean that you being a dance teacher isn't impactful. Because you might be teaching the next Misty Copeland. You don't know. It seems small, but purpose is not about big or small. Purpose is just purpose. And the results that happen as a result of it is just that. So don't compare what you see other people doing, because you're going to detract from the true power and magnitude of what you have innately within you. You got it. Understanding that what is for you is for you. It's yours exclusively. It's your process. Don't fight that. That does not mean don't look at and learn from the mistakes of others. It just means don't try to be them so much that you have no sense of authenticity or connection to who you really are. Don't lose yourself trying to be successful, because success is being your true self. And that's the only true way in looking at life on a grand scale to be successful, is to be your best self. If you've gone through your whole life letting other people decide for you, creating a life that only reflects what popularity gives you, then you've missed the point, because you're leaving this earth without impacting the right people, without setting off the correct chain reactions in order for people to enable their best selves, to connect to their best selves. And you don't want to do that to yourself or to others. We are all connected, and you wouldn't want somebody to do that to you. I wouldn't want the person I would hope that who is ever inspiring me to push and become my best self would hold on and know how important they are, because without them, there would be no me. And that's the truth. Nothing happens in a vacuum. No success happens in a vacuum. But we have to all be our best selves and live our purpose in the process. Well-being means different things for different people. So find out what it means for you, and then create a life that reflects that through personal development. And that's why these foundational elements that I keep talking about are so important. That awareness, that intent, that discipline. Because if you don't have all of those things, you're going to look at yourself and not know how to create or reconnect to that real you, how to dismantle those beliefs. You won't even know where to begin. So seek the ability to learn yourself in a space that you are disconnected from other people enough that you can make decisions that really reflect your long-term goal. When someone else is doing something amazing and they're succeeding, it's only natural to want to study and emulate what he or she is doing in order to fuel your own success. Just remember to stay authentic to your own voice. Your perspective is what makes you special, and it's what makes you powerful. No one else sees the world exactly the way you do, nor have they lived or experienced what you have. And this is not just like, oh, you are experiencing your own world. It's actually like scientific. we create our own perception of life. Even though we are all experiencing some things in the physical world that we can say are true, our own perspective and what we see and how we experience it is 100% completely a custom experience. It is completely individual to you, and no one else has the same exact experience, even if they're seeing and experiencing the same thing. The best example of this is have like 100 people view a crime and then try to get a report on it. You're gonna get a bunch of different stories about what did or didn't happen, and sometimes they're gonna be conflicting stories. That is just the best example of how everybody could be looking straight at something and still see different things. And that is true for the experience of life. You can be going through life and experience certain things that are right or wrong for you, but that doesn't mean that they're right or wrong for someone else. Your experience is exclusive to you, and it's often affected by specific factors like perception, like insecurities, like intent and focus. So understand that we're all coming from a different vantage point. Also, when you compare, also understand that just because someone looks successful in one sense doesn't mean that they're successful in another. So just because you see somebody that has money or is driving a Mercedes at 21 or bought a penthouse at 23 or whatever, doesn't mean that they have the sense of self-esteem or self-worth or discipline that you might have. So there might be spaces that they might be more successful than you that are physical or material, but you might have created a better sense of personal development and a stronger sense of self, which may take you further and get you closer to your ultimate purpose and fulfillment than this person who has been able to acquire these material things that seem successful, that you're comparing yourself to, but you don't know all the things that went into it. All right? So just understand that your journey and your power really relies on your authenticity of self. And as we spoke about yesterday, your belief in your ability to change things and affect change in your life. No one else can do that for you. And no one can take that from you unless you give them the power to do so. So that's really the important thing to know. Remember, your authentic voice is where your power resides. So in the moments where you feel stuck or overwhelmed or unable to figure out what your next idea or move in life is, try separating yourself from your external inspirations. Zone in and listen intently to your inner voice and the story it is trying to tell. Connect to your purpose, embrace your personal power, and become your best self. So know that that little voice that's inside of you that is pushing you towards who you think you might want to be, or goals that you've set in your head but you're not really sure or clear about, that's your intuition. That's that little voice inside of you that understands that you have purpose, that there's something special and powerful about you. And the truth is, we don't really live in a world where we teach that voice to be strong and to be confident. So you're going to have to give yourself permission and space to listen to that intuition and to allow it to grow in a way that one day it's no longer whispering to you, but it is shouting from the rooftops, hey, pursue your passion. This is who you are. Affect change. You are powerful. It might take a little time. It might not feel authentic, or it might feel silly, or like they're just words. But the truth is, there's going to be one day where you're going to feel it. You are really going to feel it. And I really hope for you when you do, like, send me a message, because it is kind of like a, oh wow, like I can do whatever I want to do. Like I literally can do whatever I want to do. I just have to do it. And then once that clicks and you realize that there's a purpose for you, that there's fulfillment within you, that you are worthy and capable of having this life, I'm telling you, the world is yours. The world is your oyster. Success is yours to have. Now, yes, it might take a little bit more work to make your passion and your purpose reflect monetary success. You can create systems that do that. You can have people help you do that. Those are two separate things. You could work a job that allows you to be purposeful, and then in your extracurricular, really live out your purpose. It doesn't have to be connected to money in order for it to be purposeful and for you to have an effect on people's lives and your own. So connect to yourself, know that you're powerful, don't compare. And this wasn't in my notes, but affirm yourself the whole way through. Love yourself and know that no matter what, you can do it. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can. Be the little engine that could. So as we wrap up today, know that we do have that giveaway. Had a question about the giveaway. Make sure that you are following the Local Market ATL on Instagram, my page as well, Marjani Aladdin on Instagram. And when you follow the Local Market, you can click the link in their bio in order to enter into the giveaway. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Another episode of Becoming You with Marjani Aladdin. Have a great Wednesday, and don't forget to connect to your purpose. Bye.